thank you very much for joining us. I am so happy today to have a longtime friend of mine, Allan Kilpatrick, and his wife Dana. And I was talking to Allan several months ago, and he was telling me about his journey with Hodgkin's lymphoma when he was in college.
Yes.
So very much as a young man. And I really wanted to talk to him and to Dana as his caretaker. They were dating at the time. And to really talk about what that was like for them. So we're just going to talk about that and have a conversation. Welcome to you both. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you for having us.
Yes.
Absolutely. Allan, if you wouldn't mind start off, just tell us a little bit about your story, how you were diagnosed, what you knew was happening at that time, and how that kind of fit into your life as a college student.
Sure. You know, it was really interesting just to, at the beginning, I was having shortness of breath, and I was an athlete in college playing baseball.
Mm-hmm.
And there came to a point when my friends and I would be walking to class, and I was complaining about my shortness of breath, and one of my friends said, "Allan, you need to just start working out more." And it got to a point where I couldn't even run a complete lap around the track. And then I started, at that point, I didn't know too much about the lymph nodes and the disease at the time. And so the lymph nodes was swelling under my armpit. Went to the infirmary on campus. A couple of doctors were saying it was the deodorant that I was using.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And so it just started off with the lymph node swelling. And then that led to, I started experiencing coughs. We were thinking I was having a cold or something. Started treating with cough syrup and everything. The coughs, the shortness of breath got worse. The coughing got worse. And again, I was going to different doctors, urinalysis tests, blood tests, but everything just come back normal. And then as the symptoms got worse, I started calling home, and I said, "Mom, I need to come home and see Dr. DeMazzo, our family doctor here." Then started having cold sweats. Then I couldn't eat well. I was having problems swallowing food. Couldn't swallow that good, and just kind of like gagging. And then as that was one weekend, I said, "Mom, I need to come." And Mom made a call to Dr. DeMazzo, and he told her to tell me to go to Oshner's clinic in Baton Rouge.
Okay.
That was over the weekend. And when I made it to Oshner's clinic, we were both trying to graduate, and they started running tests. And I remember Dr. Alvarez was the first doctor I saw. He came into the room, and with this accent, he said, "Mr. Kilpatrick, you are a very, very sick man. We're going to keep you for a while." And not knowing what was going on at the time, I just said, "Well, can I come back? We have midterms next week." He said, "No."
That's a test to have to take.
Exactly. And he said, "No." He said, I'm going to turn you over to Dr. J. Brooks," and he was the oncologist.
Okay.
They admitted me into the room, and at that point, still not knowing what Hodgkin's disease is, and we both were in the room. Actually, Wendy, her best friend, was with us.
Oh, wow.
And when he mentioned Hodgkin's disease, I heard that part, and he said we could treat it, and that's one of the diseases that we could treat well. But I didn't hear the part when he said it's a form of cancer.
Oh.
I didn't hear that part. And I said, "Oh, okay," like that. And he was taken aback by my reaction.
Right.
And so at that point, he walks out the room and comes back in. And by that time, I called home. And you remember back in the day, you had the encyclopedias and the medical book.
I do. Yes.
My sister looked it up, and by the time he was coming back into my hospital room, my sister was calling at the same time, telling me what it was. And at that point, he was coming back in to make sure
You truly
I heard,
understand.
yes.
Yeah.
And we went over some stuff, how we were going to treat it. He had asked Dana to leave the room.
Oh.
That's when he started telling me about chemo, because his chemo is much advanced today than it was back in 1990. And he told me about chemo and what it could do to your body, reproduction, so forth and so on. And at that point, I said, "Well, can you bring Dana back into the room? She's my girlfriend." and I can be selfish. She has a decision to make. We all want to be parents and all that good stuff. And he brought me back. He brought Dana back in, and then. But the first thing he told me, he said, I'm going to make sure you have a good night's sleep. And then the reason I couldn't really breathe was because I had a tumor on my lung, and the fluid was building up.
Okay.
And he sat me in his chair in the hospital room, and he went in from the back with the needle. And Pat Cryer, who's my nurse, she's standing there. They filled up like 32 quarts of bottles of fluid.
Fluid. It's amazing you could breathe at all.
At all.
Wow.
At all. And so that's pretty much on a short story on how I found out, because it been on for a while. The lymph nodes coming up and going back down. But all the doctors I was seeing were just saying deodorant, blood work coming back fine. And
you're a very young, healthy man. They probably didn't even, they just thought it was something else.
Exactly.
But you were seniors in college. You were getting ready to graduate. What is going through your mind, Dana?
A whole lot.
Yeah.
At that point. 22 years old, we didn't know anything about cancer. Not too much about anything medically, other than what you go through puberty and then all the way up until 21 years old. We hadn't had a lot of medical illnesses. So it really actually, caught both of us off guard. Emotions just flowing, not really understanding, hearing what he's saying, what the doctor's saying, but not really understanding everything that the doctor is telling us at that point. So as Allan stated, took out the encyclopedias and, wanted to do a little bit more research regarding it. And so we did, and we had a lot of long talks, regarding a lot of stuff. And, as he stated, we were dating. We weren't talking about marriage or anything like that, but, just dating, college sweethearts. But we knew that was, definitely a possibility. So, it was definitely something that we had to talk about as far as he stated regarding, kids and, reproductive and system and everything that goes on with chemotherapy. So, we talked about it, and, both of us, and not just us, but our families being very spiritual. We prayed about it, and we said, whatever will happen, will happen. And, it's God's will.
Right.
So we actually just went through the process, with him going through chemotherapy. And, of course, just doing a lot of praying, about the situation. And, it took a lot, It was very a very emotional time for us. And it was a learning process for us as well. I was the caretaker who was, because Allan was adamant about finishing college. And I knew it was important to him. So he didn't want to come back to Georgia. He wanted to stay in Louisiana. So, I supported him. His family supported him as well, even though they did not want him to stay down there, because they wanted him to be here where they could actually support him, be his support system, and provide the assistance that he needed. And so he decided to stay, and we informed my parents that he was going to stay. Well, at that particular time, when I was a junior, senior, I was living off campus, so I had an apartment, which was perfect.
Oh, that's nice.
But of course, I had to get my parents' blessings to allow him to stay there.
Of course, yes, absolutely.
Because of course they did. Of course,
Sure.
Everybody's human, and they know there were visits, of course. But you're talking about someone actually moving in with me,
right?
You
taking
and
care
me
of
taking
him.
care of him. And so they wouldn't have had it. My parents wouldn't have had it any other way. They would not. Allan, he become very close to the family. I become very close to his family. So we just legally weren't married.
Right.
So so we actually, lived together, and he supported me and I supported him. He had his moments, I had my moments. But it was extremely important for me to hide my feelings, because I had to support him.
Wanted to stay strong for him.
Wanted to stay strong for him. And, the chemotherapy visits were exactly what they were. It just took him getting off the elevator, walking into the hospital, And time he walked in the hospital, he would just smell chemo automatically. It just made him sick. So, and that was a trying time, but we got through it.
Yeah.
You know, it really, really takes a strong support system to get through that. Anybody going through that by themselves, I don't know how they would do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to that day, because it was Dana who actually, when I brought her back in with Dr. Brooks, and we was talking about chemotherapy, and I don't know if you remember, it was Dana who said, we could talk about our lives later on. We got to get you well.
Get through this. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and just for a real living beings and the human, we got to get you well.
Absolutely.
You know, girlfriend, boyfriend.
Yeah.
You're a person.
Well,
That's
Figure the rest out
Yeah.
later.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. But it not only just to a support system from family members, as you just heard Allan tell the story of what happened and how he can recall every doctor's name,
Yes.
every nurse's name, because they were the most perfect doctors and medical staff that you ever could have. And if they weren't, he probably wouldn't even remember their names to this day. It's been 30-something years,
Yeah.
30 plus years. And having Dr. Alvarez and Dr. Brooks, and I even know their names, and even the nursing staff, and Pat, and I mean, they were so supportive. And to have doctors like that who actually, you know, you felt like really cared about you, and knowing that he was from out of state with no family there really, and they became a part of his family,
That's nice.
the medical staff.
Yeah.
So that was helpful too.
And then, you know, speaking of cancer, and so going back to Dr. Brooks and the staff, so just to backtrack, my story, I had an aunt that I was really close to in Cincinnati, and she had cancer, and while I was in college, and then that was a time when my mom was going up there, they were going to do surgery on her, and so after they did surgery, Mama called back. She said, "It's going to be fine. The doctor said everything's going to be okay." It was like 2 weeks later. My mom and my sister was going back to Cincinnati, and she did not want to tell me. And I was like, "Why are you going back to Cincinnati?" And it got to a point where they had given her 3 or 4 months to live. And at that point, I had issues with doctors. Because of what you said, it was the trust.
Sure. Absolutely.
That I was thinking about, and I told that story to Dr. Brooks before we started chemo, and he said, just like you all at my hospital, at my bed, and he looked at me just like you're looking. He said, "Allan, I'm not going to say you're going to live or you're going to die." I was stage 4B.
Oh, wow.
I was stage 4B. And I was down to like 118 pounds, yes.
Yeah.
And he said, I can't say whether you're going to live or die.
Right.
He said, but I'm going to do my best. And when he left the room, as Dana mentioned, just faith. My prayer was, "Lord, please touch the medication and the hands that are about to give me this medication in Jesus' name. Amen." And I kind of just like let it go right there. And just by him telling me, and I said, "You're my doctor." I didn't want him. If he had said something else, I think I would have said, "I want to see another doctor."
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, that honesty of knowing that this may work, this may not work.
Because
You just
now
don't
I know I have cancer.
Yeah, absolutely.
At first I didn't.
Right, exactly. Well, and something you said, it was, I know in my own journey, it was so important to have someone else in the room when the doctor was talking to me, because you don't hear everything.
No.
Right.
Your mind is racing.
That's true.
And those who love you, their minds are racing.
Right.
And so I had a friend that, of course, she loved me, but that wasn't, she could sit there and listen and write notes and check it all out. So those things
Right.
are important.
Oh,
Very,
absolutely.
very.
Well, how do you get through college? I mean, you're in your midterms of your last semester. Is that what it was? And
Yes.
And so you get through college. How do you do that? Going through the treatments and the chemo.
The first thing, Dr. Brooks, as Dana mentioned, he kind of counseled me, and he said, "Make sure you go talk to your professors," and which I did, and I was taking a huge load trying to graduate. And I spoke to all my professors and told them what was going on. Dr. Brooks set up, we treated the cancer aggressively because of where I was. And he was thinking that because I was an athlete, that at this point, they just test your body out.
Right.
And I went to each professor, explained what was going on. He said the chemo treatments every other Friday. And all of my professors, except for one, gave me the opportunity to make up exams. Anything I missed, they would allow me to make it up. And it was my biology professor that did not go forward, and I did not pass because I missed my midterm. And when I went back to him, my advisor told me to go back and talk to him to see if I could retake it. And there was no, and his reasoning was I should have dropped the course.
Good heavens.
Yeah. And interesting is that I had already taken a sociology course, and that sociology course really canceled the biology course, so I didn't need the biology course.
Good.
So I stayed on track.
Excellent.
And so it was
That's
all
good.
of the professors working with me, and working with the scheduling of my chemotherapy, and they knew that Monday, it was kind of like a trial and error of like the first couple of treatments. And so Dr. Brooks knew that with the program I was going through, it was the days after the recovery. And so that's why he chose Fridays and give me Saturday and Sunday to recover. But still, probably like Monday, I was still like just like out of it.
Yeah, I bet.
And so the professors, they really worked with me and was really caring.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, you were
And didn't have to do
you
the
were
same thing.
caretaker, so
Yes,
I bet you
and
had to do the same
I had
thing.
to do the same thing. And mine were very, very understanding. I do recall that there was probably like one or two who really wanted to see some type of documentation, considering it wasn't,
Wasn't
you know,
you,
it wasn't me, it wasn't a
mhm.
relative, you know, it was a boyfriend.
Yeah.
And so, but very understanding, you know, interestingly enough, they were very understanding.
That's good.
And they could see, you know, it was repetitive behavior that I had on certain Fridays, as he just mentioned. You know, I was not there.
Right.
And but you know, you work extremely hard, and while he slept, I studied because he was up, you know, and maybe in the middle of the night or something like that. So we worked it out.
Yeah.
We worked it out.
She, as a caretaker, it's hard being a caretaker.
Oh yeah.
And knowing what I was going through, and that's what they say, chemo, it can affect people in different ways.
Sure.
I didn't lose my hair. I know that's a big thing, but they could not stop me from being nauseated, just throwing
That's
up.
really bad.
And then it was just like, I can see her right now. First she had to carry me to bed because the chemo was just so tough on me. My first treatment, I fell flat out on my face, getting out of the car.
Yeah.
And every treatment we did, it was 6 months.
I think so.
2 weeks, one on and one off. And I'm just vomiting.
Yeah.
And she placed the trash can with the bag, and I can see her right now just changing the bags, put another one in, and I'm just filling up.
That's love. I'm telling you. Wow.
Yeah.
What impact did your cancer journey have on your relationship? What at that time, and then also as you look back on it now,
Yeah.
really, what did that do?
I think at that time, the relationship that we had, I think it made it stronger. It made me see the type of person that he was, how strong of a person he was, to have, being able to go through that. And also kind of made me see some things about myself. Question and ask myself many times, is this something that I really want to go through,
Yeah.
But I knew that I loved Allan, at that point. But it made things a little bit stronger, made the love that I have for him stronger. And it just made me as an individual see that this was the person that I really wanted to spend the rest of my life with, regardless of whether we were able to have kids or not. I think that everyone's put here for a specific reason. Some people are here to bear children, and some are here to also provide that nourishment, but in different ways. Like now, we have 5 godchildren.
Oh.
So we were not able to have, and we just assumed that medically we could not have kids. Don't really know. We just didn't want to find out. If it happened, it happened.
Right.
But, everyone's not put here for the same reason. And so that's kind of the way we look at it.
That's great.
And I think I'm more outspoken for children, and I think I show my emotions more towards children, and because I'm thinking about the sacrifice. That was a sacrifice that she made.
Absolutely.
That's a sacrifice
Definitely.
that she made for me.
Dana, what advice would you give to caregivers?
Oh, wow. I probably would have to say you definitely have to have patience. I mean, it takes a lot of patience. You may find yourself getting a little perturbed because sometimes they're not going to listen to what you have to say. They're going to want to do one thing and you're going to want them to do something else, which is definitely going to be best for them. But you definitely have to have patience, and you have to be supportive. You have to have a supportive system. You can't do it by yourself. And when I say that, maybe not physically have someone there with you, but I had Allan's mom. Allan's mom, she's a praying mom. And so not only was she praying for us, but she had the entire church here in Atlanta praying for us. So, and it takes that. I mean, they sent him tapes, just pre-recorded at that time. I say tapes, I'm dating us now, CDs and tapes and stuff back then. And, he would listen to them, and that's a support system too, even though it's not a physical human being. But in answering your question, you definitely, need to be there for that person. Don't wear you try not to wear your emotions on your sleeve, because then that's going to make the person that you're caring for just feel down and not really feel like they can really get through the situation at hand. But you're going to have your moments, and you definitely have to let those emotions out. Yeah. But I just try not to allow him to see me do it. And take some time for yourself. You definitely have to take some time for yourself. As Allan mentioned, we have one of my girlfriends who's also a dear friend to him. She would come over, and we would have one of his friends to come over, and then she and I would go somewhere. Oh, nice. So you have to continue to take time for yourself as well. Yeah. But I guess those are the most important things. Just be there for that person, emotionally, spiritually. And just, continue to provide them with, just positive, aspirations or inspirations. That's going to be helpful for them as well.
That's great.
But that's how we got through it. Yeah.
That's wonderful. It's your team, and I'm sure you grew up fast.
Oh,
with
absolutely.
All that. You had to.
Let me tell you, yes.
Yeah.
Very fast.
Well, Allan, so it's been over 30 years.
Yes,
what did the cancer journey, how did it change you? How did it impact your life moving forward? And what advice do you have for others going through cancer?
The first part is how the way it impacted me. I think it made me a more of an outspoken person. They would say opinionated. Conversations are interesting. My friends, they know that it's just Allan now being Allan. At the time, that was something they had to get used to. Back in the day, it was more. People said I was the quiet one out of the group. Now I tend to share my opinion. And sometimes I have to say, maybe I shouldn't have said that.
Or not as direct.
As direct.
Maybe you could have changed that a little bit.
Yeah. So that's what it has done for me. Just being able to just share opinions, and even just being there for people, and just trust. Being able to trust what I say to someone, and for them to be receptive of that, and what I would say to other cancer patients that are going through it at a young age, middle age, old age, something that Dr. Brooks had told me right when we were starting out, getting ready to start chemo. Try not to be stressful. Try not to stress yourself. Your body, your immune system, it thrives off of stress.
Oh, wow.
And to this day, I think that's why I'm more opinionated. Whether it's bills or anything, it's like, well, sometimes I think of cancer every day. I'm quite sure you do. When you wake up, it's something I think about. But it's something, if it's driving some thoughts in my mind, it's like, I mean, I've been through cancer. What else do I need to think about? Why am I pondering on this? And that's something I would tell other people, and that I have told other patients. Don't stress. We're gonna think about it.
Yep.
We're gonna think about it daily. But try not to stress. And I have a friend right now, same guy who used to say, Allan, you need to work out. Same guy I was walking to class with. He's dealing with lung cancer.
Oh, wow.
He's dealing with lung cancer today.
Yeah.
And he wakes up, I call him, hey, White, how you doing? Al, I'm in pain, but I'm making it. That's all I want to hear.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say. Just don't stress.
I love that. I need to take that advice myself. That is good. Well, thank you both so much. I really appreciate it. We love to have these interviews so people who are working with Georgia Core know about the programs we have for survivors and caregivers and others. It's just really important to hear stories from people who have made it through their cancer journey and the lessons they've learned from that.
Absolutely.
And I'm very grateful to you both. Thank you for your time.
You're more than welcome. It's definitely our pleasure to be able to speak to you about it.
Anytime for you.
Thank
you.
you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you all. Now that was a great conversation.